Susie Homesteader the Rockies, and welcome to the Susie Homesteader channel. And it's Thanksgiving, and today we're going to go over some fun Thanksgiving tablescapes and crafts. We're going to do a kids table as well for Thanksgiving, which will be something new. And then I'll also have some cooking and some cocktail videos for you after this. So let's just go through our tablescape real quick and give you a couple fun ideas to use for Thanksgiving. And again, this is just kind of an easy one, using our cranberry colors and our beiges and our neutrals and some browns, some more of our wood products, and then coming up with just some cute centerpieces and some little crafts that the kids can help you with that once again you can incorporate into your table. So here's an example of a fun one, and also a good way to use your paper bags, your lunch bags, which you probably haven't thought of too many ideas for yet. But that's just nothing more than a brown paper bag cut about 3/4 of the way up, and just some twine laced into that. Maybe go get some cute paper punches that have some fun designs on it, and print off some great quotes off the internet that you can glue onto your bags. So I think I have about a dozen different quotes, so a different one for every plate, which is really cute. To kind of mix it up and give everybody their own little quote for the day. And then you can use your scissors, some of your fancy scissors to give it some cute edges. And then, of course, put your napkins and your silverware in there for each table setting. And then you'll also see some cute little Thanksgiving cards on the clothespins there. And all that is, again, something that you can print off of the internet and give everybody a chance to write down what they're thankful for at Thanksgiving, which is something I always like to do. So a couple little paper crafts there for you. And then, of course, trying to just do some kind of a turkey-themed centerpiece. And that's what we have going on here. So I think I bought this guy, oh gosh, that could have been Costco or who knows, but go find some cute little ceramic turkey. Or you can actually also use maybe a stuffed pheasant if you have something like that laying around, which I did, but my pheasant was a little bit too big for the table, so we just went with the fake turkey. And then this is a fun way to use a wreath, and I use a lot of these for a different angle, as opposed to putting them on a door or a wall. You can use your wreaths for centerpieces, or just, the outer edge of some other kind of a little fun decor that you put together. So another way to use wreaths, they're not always on a wall. And then, come up with some of your own cute little candle holders. This is just a couple things I probably found at a craft store and just threw them all together. I think they even have some cinnamon sticks in there, and just turned it into kind of a fun little candle holder. And then I use these glass jars a lot for my centerpieces because it's just a easy way to put little knickknacks inside. And I think that's just some fake corn that I got at probably like a Hobby Lobby craft store, and some fake leaves. And then just put those all in the glass so you can see that. And maybe wrap a fake candle in some scrap leather if you have any scrap leather hanging around. And then once again, we're using that twine. So all just some kind of good textures for a fall or a Thanksgiving table, and we're still sticking to kind of all the browns and the neutrals again. And then, you've heard me talk about this burlap runner in some of my other videos. And again, that is just nothing more than some coffee bean bags that were cut up into a runner and pieced together with some hot glue, depending on how long of a runner that you're trying to make. And I think I did pre-wash that with some fabric softener before I actually cut my burlap. So an easy way to use coffee bean bags to create a kind of a burlap theme. And here's our burlap again, and you've probably seen these on some of my other tablescapes. Just some brown burlap that, of course, I found at a craft store, and cut into just some and sewed into some chair covers. So easy ways to do quick sewing. Nothing too time consuming because of course I never have the time to do that much sewing. But these can be used on all kinds of tablescapes as a chair accent. And then you can even add, maybe some strings of cranberries on top of this on the back side. So lots of ways to continue to decorate your chair accents beyond just the burlap. So there's a couple easy sewing projects for you. And then, of course, with Thanksgiving, you got to have some aprons because the whole holiday is all about cooking. So this is a good chance, if you want to try to attempt to make an apron, to go find, again, just some scrap fabric, which, of course, I found at a thrift store, and put together a cute little apron for Thanksgiving. And you can make a child-size apron, and then you can make an adult-size apron. So, once again, more fabric from the thrift store turned into some cute little holiday aprons. And then back to the sewing again. I think these placemats came from upholstery fabric, if I can recall, which of course was at a thrift store. And then just cut that upholstery fabric into some cute little placemats. And just, make sure you're putting a nice hem or a nice edge on all those so that they don't unravel. So there you go. Lots of fabric projects and little odds and ends crafts. Here is one other little item that you can put together. And this is where I use my melamine again, which I also talk about quite a bit in some of my crafts. Because melamine is a great material to do a dry erase pen on. So I think these were just some coasters, extra coasters that I had, and I decided to turn those into just some place card holders. And that looks like some of my bamboo that I probably just cut into pieces and turned it into kind of like a little floral display with some dried pods and dried flowers that I had left over from the fall. So just another way to use a coaster as a place card holder and just some dry erase markers. So there's another place card holder for you. And then let's head off the table here and go down the road, and I will show you a super easy wreath. And these little smaller corn pieces are a little bit easier to use than the big ones, otherwise you wind up with a really big wreath. So if you can find these smaller little dried corn cobs, that's the way to go. And then just glue them onto, a styrofoam wreath that may be covered with some burlap or some fabric. And that's it. Just glue them on there and you have a fun little corn wreath for Thanksgiving. But I would not suggest you putting that outdoors, especially if you have birds. A lot of birds outside because you won't have a wreath left if you put that outdoors. So that is a good one to try and keep in the house if you do actually use real corn or dried corn. And then here's another easy one that you can put on a wall, and that is just an old frame. Of course, found it at a thrift store. Some chicken wire, just stapled to the back of that, and some fabric swatches. I think again upholstery fabric swatches that I had laying around and turned into a banner with some of the adhesive lettering. So you don't have to cut the lettering out. You just buy it like that. It's got a sticky back on it, and you can just stick that right onto your fabric, and it stays on pretty good. And then just hang that onto your chicken wire, and you have a cute little Be Grateful Thanksgiving frame as well. So there's a couple of crafts for you besides your tablescape. And then we'll go down to this side here and pick up a couple more fun crafts that you can do. Next time you find a cutting board or any kind of little wood surface, again at a thrift store, you can just take that and turn it into a sign. So just go get a cutting board, old cutting board, it doesn't matter what it looks like, and some pens, some markers, some little stickers, and you have an instant sign for Thanksgiving. And excuse me, that's a real easy one to do. And then here's another one, and I of course found this little wood, well actually I don't really know what it was, just some kind of a little wood, cutout that was at a thrift store, and I decided to turn it into a menu board. So just go get your chalkboard paper and some chalk pens, and your scissors and turn that into a menu board for the holidays. And of course you can use that for lots of holidays other than Thanksgiving. So there are 2 signs that are super easy to make. And then this pumpkin here, it almost looks fake, but it is a real pumpkin. This is another fun way to use your cake banners. So this little paper cake banner that I used for pies or cakes or for Thanksgiving can also be used on a pumpkin. And it's kind of fun to decorate pumpkins instead of cakes once in a while. So again, use your cake banners or your pie banners on a pumpkin. And another thing you can do is just go get a doorknob and replace that stem with a doorknob. And there's some real pretty doorknobs out there that you can use on pumpkins, and you'll see a lot of that. It's kind of a trendy little thing to use your doorknobs on the pumpkins and then turn your whole pumpkin into kind of a banner in itself. So good way to change up pumpkins, especially if you have some left over from Halloween, which I think is what that's from. And then, of course, just displaying fake gourds and pumpkins any way you can, just trying to stay within the whole holiday theme. And you can always use something like a candlestick holder to display some of your fall items as well. So this candlestick holder gets used over and over for all kinds of different ideas. But there's another way to kind of display some of your little knickknacks. And this project was a little more challenging. I really wanted some teepee lights, but couldn't find any. So what I wound up doing on this was taking some little plastic cups. I think they're like shot glass cups, little plastic ones that I had in the bar, and just gluing some fabric, some kind of like I think this was kind of like a drop cloth material fabric over those cups, and then also using some of my straws from the bar as well, and creating a little bit of a frame for that. And then just drawing on those little fabric teepees and stringing some lights through it. So I did find a way to create my own teepee lights. That was a little bit more time consuming than it looks. But we thought it came out pretty cute, and I thought that was pretty resourceful, being just about all of that came out of the bar for materials. So there you go. There's some cute little teepee lights you can make. And next we will go down to another area, and we will go through a couple more crafts before we hit our Thanksgiving table for kids. Okay, so here we have just a couple more easy, fun Thanksgiving Day decor and crafts for your dining room or wherever else you want to display some of it. This is one of the easiest ones there is right here. That's just a really tall pie stand, and it's kind of nice to have a taller version of a pie stand or a cake stand, because that way if you have more than one, you can have those at different levels. So this is just a galvanized bucket or vase turned upside down with a pizza pan glued to the top. So, you know, get your E600 glue out, and you have a simple tall cake stand. And that's what we're doing with that for Thanksgiving. And then, you know, this is one of those homeschool projects for a history unit that we did on the Indians and the Pilgrims. And then when we were done with that teepee craft, we turned it into part of our Thanksgiving decor. So you'll see me do that with a lot of our little fun homeschool kid craft projects. And again, we use this for the kids so that they got an idea of how easy or how hard it was to actually build a teepee. So this is obviously not an exact duplicate, but pretty close. And all we did was get a piece of plywood with some cocoa fiber on top, built our teepee frame out of just some tall sticks that I had left over from a building project, and took a really nice thin fabric, kind of a, you know, simple cloth fabric, and stained that in some coffee, so, you know, or a tea, just to make it look like it was a little bit more of a stained leather, and wrapped that around our frame, and added a couple other little odds and ends to that, and we had a teepee for our homeschool project, and now we have it as part of our Thanksgiving decor. So that's a fun way to reuse some of those. And then another thing you can do, we talked about not always having to use a wreath on a wall or a door. This is another fun way to use wreaths. Just to use it as a border to hold on to some other items that you might have or in a bowl. Just easy ways to, reuse stuff. And then one other thing I always do with our group here at Thanksgiving is I try to have at least one person at the table every year read our gratitude quote. I put this in a frame and we keep this out all year long. It's just a great way to, like I said, have somebody read at the table or have this on display the rest of the year so everybody remembers what gratitude is all about. So if you have a real pretty frame or you have a quote or a saying that you want to keep on hand, there's a good way to do it. Oh, another fun part of Thanksgiving is setting up your kids' table. I haven't actually done a video for this yet, but as the family is getting bigger and you're running out of space at your regular table, setting up a kids' table kind of seemed like a good idea. I think I might do one for Christmas and I might do one for Easter or some of the bigger holidays. But what I figured out is if you don't have an extra table available to actually do that on a temporary basis, one of the easiest things you can do is go buy one of those camp tables. This is one we used to keep in the camper, portable, foldable, movable. Just keep one of these on hand or like a small card table, depending on how many kids you're going to sit at that. This little camp table actually only fits about 6 more kids at this setting here if you have this much stuff going on. And then another thing I had to do was resurrect some extra chairs. And I did have some old bar stools sitting out on my porch, but they were in really bad shape. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with these eventually, but somebody gave them to me, and I decided to just cut up some drop cloth material that I had laying around. So if you have any extra drop cloths without any paint on it, or even if you do have paint on it, this is a great, easy way to just cut some fabric up and cover some really ugly bar stools. So that's what I did on this, and just tied some big yarn or whatever you got just to kind of keep it in place and just hide those ugly chairs. So here's a good example of how to cover up a really ugly bar stool. But anyway, that worked out okay. And then another fun thing you can do with your tablecloth instead of using a regular cloth is use a brown paper, like a brown wrapping paper or craft paper. And that gives the kids an opportunity to be as messy as they want and even color on it. So you'll see a lot of that on Pinterest and other ideas where instead of using cloth, you're going to use actually some brown paper. But I decided to use the cloth. And then what I wanted to do after that was obviously give them a place to color. And I think I ordered these on probably Amazon. But just some fun little Thanksgiving coloring placemats. So that gives them a chance to actually do some coloring. And then we're definitely going to try and keep these kids occupied at the table while they're here. So we'll have all kinds of fun little ideas in our little bag boats here that we'll go through in a minute just to kind of keep them occupied. But, a lot of this stuff that I didn't have, I just picked up at Walmart. This is the dollar store. This was the thrift store. So, if you don't have some of this at home, there's plenty of cheap ways to pick these things up, odds and ends up, without spending a fortune. So, again, this was just another little Walmart find. If you can't find that stuff when you get there because it's gone, you can easily make all of this, with just some craft foam. So they're giving you the ideas already when you get there. And like I said, it doesn't get any easier than that for setting up a kid's table. Some of the other things that I decided to do, instead of using a table runner, because I didn't have enough space anyway on this table, was I took an old wooden banner that I had made for Thanksgiving out of some wood slices that I had cut and used a chalkboard. I used a blue chalkboard paint on these wood cuts. And then use some actual chalk pens on top of that to write out or spell whatever you want to spell. Now, the great thing about this is that obviously you can take any kind of lettering off because it's a chalk, or you can flip it over and reuse it for another event. So I use these little wooden banners for lots of things, and they don't always have to sit on a table. Obviously, they can hang up on a wall or whatever you want, but lots of ways to use a banner other than on a wall. And in this case, I thought it was really cute on a kid's table. And then these are just some little statues that I picked up, and again, probably at a thrift store. Made a little stand out of some cinnamon sticks, which just kind of goes hand in hand with Thanksgiving. So if you have some, cinnamon sticks you can get a hold of. These I actually had to find at a health food store. It was a little hard to find the bigger ones at a grocery store. But if you ever get a hold of these bigger cinnamon sticks, it's fun to glue them onto boxes or jars or all kinds of stuff. And in this case, we're just using that little cinnamon stick box as a stand for our centerpiece, and it also smells really good at a kid's table. So just some ideas for a simple centerpiece. Because the table gets so busy with little crafts and projects for kids, you do run out of room fast. So anyway, again, you can buy these kind of little crazy cup cozies at Walmart, or once again, you can make those out of foam. I mean, the foam craft sheets, and just so easy to make. And these were just wrapped onto these glasses. Found those as well. And then another thing that I came up with, we never use these corn trays anyway. And finally, I decided I was going to use them somehow, some way. And what I wound up doing was actually making these little napkin rings for the kids anyway, which was just a piece of leather and some cute little felt pilgrim hats that we cut out and glued onto the napkin ring. But again, like I said, I still found a way to use these little corn trays that I just thought were adorable with our little hats and our silverware and our napkins. So good little way to repurpose those corn trays that nobody ever uses. And, of course, just go get some more cups and fill them up with crayons and markers and anything else the kids are going to need at the table to do all their little crafts with. So, and, even stuck some little acorns in the straws just to, stick with the Thanksgiving theme. Just make sure they take these out before they take a sip. But anyway, just stick some acorns in the straws, anything that has to do with this same holiday. And so back to our little boats, and sticking with our little pilgrim theme again, Indians and pilgrims. This is what I talked about on the other table, where you can use some paper bags again. So again, just cut off some paper bags, the tops of some brown paper bags. And the idea was to just build this little place card with their place card setting with their names on it. So if you have some chalkboard paper and some chalk pens, then and then a skewer. These are just nothing more than skewers. That's a really easy way to draw or write whatever you want on their little place cards. And then the other thing I decided to do was kind of reinforce these bags, and that's just because they were kind of folding in on me, even though they were full of little goodies. But take some more of those skewers and just poke them through the sides of the bag so that your bag has a little better support on it. And then that way, and don't glue or tape anything, because that way when Thanksgiving is over, you can disassemble all this stuff and reuse it again if you want to. So, and you can take it all apart and fold it, and it'll be super easy to store. So what we're going to do then is just fill our little pilgrim boats up with some fun little crafts. And what we have in this bag over here was just some goodies that I think I found at, a craft store, or Michael's, or wherever I was. But the idea was to, again, stay with our Thanksgiving theme and just find something for them to paint. And if you don't want to get into paints at your table, just get some markers or some scented markers for the kids to use instead, because they can use those pens on this instead of paint if you don't want to get too messy. So that's just an opportunity for them to paint. And then another fun thing I decided to do with these little cards that I just found probably at Walmart was to turn them into lacing cards, which is super easy, just another project. But just go get a hole punch and punch some little holes in these cards. and then give them a bunch of twine. You know, cut out 3 strings of twine or however many cards you have, and let them turn them into little lacing cards. And what that'll look like when they're done is something like, this. And again, it's just a project. It's just something to keep them occupied at the table. So you may find some different cards, just get a hole punch, and then you have a little lacing project. That's an easy one. I also threw in some little dream catchers that I think we got in the mail, going with our Indian theme. And then one more little project for them to do is I bought some little tiny containers, or maybe you can find some bags, and put some wooden beads in there and some more twine. And what that'll do is give them the opportunity to make just some kind of a little wooden bead bracelet. So, give them like a dozen beads and some string, wood beads, and just find some little box or bag to put them in, and that gives them another project. And one thing, you might want to get some plastic needles. Some of those beads are a little hard to get that twine through, so if you want to pick up a little package or a couple packages of these little plastic needles, that makes that little bead project a lot easier. So that's something you might want to keep. And then, of course, last but not least on their little bag is, again, their little chance to write down what they're thankful for with some mini clothespins. And again, just something where they can write on something. So a couple crafts for them to do. They'll have coloring, they'll have painting and or markers, they'll have a writing project, they'll have some beads, and just anything that kind of stays with the Indian and the pilgrim theme. So there's some fun projects. And then if you have extra napkin rings on hand, if you've made a couple extra, you can turn that into a hair barrette or a hair clip for a little girl. So if you have little girls at the table, take a couple of those napkin rings and then just turn them into a hair clip. And there's one more little goodie you can put in their bags. So lots to do. That should keep them occupied for a couple of hours. And not get too messy, and hopefully keep them eating at the same time. So there's some great ideas for a kid's tablescape. And then we just have some other little fun projects that we did with the kids. This is just a little thankful banner made out of felt. Felt always just seems to go real well with Thanksgiving. It's a fun fabric to work with, and a good chance for them to do some cutting with scissors. And you can find these little pumpkin pokins. I think that's Amazon. Keep some good Thanksgiving Day books on hand for them. So if you run out of ideas, somebody can sit down and start reading to the kids. So we always have Thanksgiving books and usually a couple of Thanksgiving Day movies. These are just some of my little crafts. All that was some turkey feathers that one of our neighbors shot that we kept and decided to put into a little vase. Another fun thing we found with the kids at the thrift store was this little turkey pillow kit. And what that was just a piece of fabric that was already printed in the shape of a turkey. And then we had some of the kids just stuff it with some pillow stuffing, and then just sew it up. So again, just so many projects for the kids to do or to help you with, and then hopefully they'll have enough to keep themselves occupied during your Thanksgiving dinner. So if you have any more questions, come and see me on my website, Susie Homesteader of the Rockies, and we will see you there. Bye-bye. So let's get started. Subscribe to the Susie Homesteader channel, and we'll see you there. Bye-bye.